So as Dalcnet, we are a long-term partner for Luxendi, and we are a company specialized in LED controllers, especially low voltage LED controllers. And as a company, one of our mission is to always have the right solution for the customer requirements, and this most of the time means to have the possibility to move between different protocols. So, of course, here we are speaking about DALI, and of course, DALI is probably the most diffused and most standardized protocol in the lighting industry. But as a light electronics manufacturer, we believe that there are many different protocols on the field, many different requirements from the projects. And so I strongly believe that having the knowledge and the tools to integrate different systems and different protocols is crucial for most of the application. So in my presentation, I will skip the product presentations. I will not go in detail on the DALI protocol characteristics, but I would like to move a little bit away from the product and more on the application side to see how DALI can be used, how DALI can be interfaced with other systems. And you will see that this presentation will be some sort of list of different possible application and integration of a DALI system. So I'll skip the description of the DALI protocol. Alex and Gabriel already gave a very nice description of the different devices that you can find, the different application of the device. I will start with presenting how you will find the DALI systems and how you will find and which are the tools and the products and the configuration that you can use to manage these products. So DALI is a standardized protocol, but sometimes is not a choice. Sometimes something that is forced by the power supply choice and availability, by the light manufacturer or light designer. But in some cases, we find integrations that requires DALI to speak with other systems, because sometimes the light designer choose luminaires but based on the aesthetics, and they don't look at that they have different protocols. Sometimes there are many different type of control system, like touch panels or BMS integrations that doesn't speak with DALI. And so here we will see some examples. So we will start with the most simple applications, something that we have already maybe seen in the Lunatone presentation, but to give a little bit of an overview how you will find a standalone DALI integration. So how we can use a DALI network as itself, just for most simple applications. We will see, what it is called the BMS integration. So the integration of DALI system on building management systems. The DMX integration is the third chapter. It will be probably where we have an historical knowledge, and because we are dealing with DMX a lot, and we totally believe that sometimes the mixture of DMX characteristics and DALI characteristics in the same project can be quite an interesting application, especially for bigger installations. And at the end, I will focus a little bit on the wireless integration of DALI, which is a very big topic to cover. We will probably present what we are used to, what we think is interesting, because of course the wireless evolution in lighting, but in most of the electronic system, is something that is real, and there are very nice possible applications. So again, you already know what DALI is, I assume. So I will not give too much details on that, and I will go directly on the example. So the most simple the DALI integration is a standalone DALI integration. So it's not an integration, it's more the DALI usage, the typical DALI users for, especially for small context. So residential application, small offices and small buildings, industrial lighting, classroom and this kind of application. So in these applications, the DALI product or the DALI line works basically in an independent way without any other system than human interfaces like push buttons and sensors. So a first example is we start from the most simple one. So I have some DALI luminaires. I have a push button interface that is still one of the most diffused human interface that we still have and we still want. A simple push button interface, we cited the one from Lunatone, but there are many on the market. The bus power supply and the devices. This is probably the most simple application because the push button interface uses a broadcast signal in this most simple application. So this means that I don't need to do any commissioning. So in this kind of example, I don't need to address every device because the push button interface is configured for a broadcast signal. So a broadcast signal means that every device that is connected on the DALI line responds to the command. So for this reason, I don't need to distinguish every single control gear because they need to behave all the same. Another similar example is the presence sensors. So especially in a DALI 1 application, the presence sensor, the most typical configuration of a presence sensor was a broadcast control. So the presence sensor will see the presence of a person, and then is configured to send out another broadcast signal to turn on the lights, and for some times or after the presence is not anymore there, you turn off the lights. And again, it's a very, very simple application because we don't need any commissioning. We start to move a little bit on more complicated stuff. Is the group control with push buttons. So we have seen in the previous presentation, there are many different types of push button interfaces, but in the most simple configuration, we can have two push buttons that control two different groups. Two different groups can be two different rooms or different areas of one room. And in this case, again, the configuration is quite simple, but it requires the DALI commissioning. So when I speak about DALI commissioning, I mean that I need to connect the system. Oh, no, it's not working. To connect the system with the device, with the DALI programmer. One of the most used one is the DALI USB from Tridonic or the product from Lunatone. And I have to assign the group at every device. So if I want some devices under the group 1 or under push button 1, I need to address these devices on group 1 and the other device on group 2, and then the system, they can disconnect the programmer and the system can work without any other input, just with the push button that control directly the control gears. Then we move to another, for probably the most recent evolution of a DALI standalone system. So with the DALI 2 introduction, DALI has created the multi-master topology configuration. So in the previous example, the system was a single master application, which means that I have only one device that controls the luminaires or the control gears. In the multi-master topology, the configuration is more layered on different levels. So this is another quite simple application, but the idea is that especially with DALI 2 new devices, the input device is not a master anymore, so it's not sending commands to the luminaires. The input device, like a push button interface or a presence sensor, is sending what is called an instance. So the instance is like a message that is not controlling the luminaire, but is just saying to another device, the button is pressed or the presence is there. So in this configuration, of course, opens the possibility to make more advanced stuff. So give the chance to have multiple devices that interact together in the same network, sensors, buttons, switches, and stuff like that. And of course, we need an external controller that is the real master. So in this kind of application here, when I press the button, the push button interface send an instance to the application controller, and the application controller is programmed to do something. This something can be a broadcast command, can be a group command, can be an address command, many different things. So here I'm presenting an example from Meanwell, but again, there are many of that. The main advantage of this configuration is that I have multiple inputs on the system. Can be touch panels, push buttons, sensors. Of course, this needs an application controller, so usually a device that has another level of cost, and of course some programming that is not only assigning an address, but requires to assign the combination between an event, which is a push button, for example, and an action, like turn on the lights or dim the lights. So let's go let's level up a little bit the complexity. So we know that DALI is a lot diffused, there's a lot of functions, but the main issue when we have a big installation is that DALI controls only lights, of course. But in most modern installations, can be residential, industrial, retail, there's not only light that must be connected. There are many different types of BMS system. When I speak about BMS, I mean building management systems that controls many different things. Not only lights, but gates, audio, video, security, the blinds, the many different things. And DALI is just one of the main things that we need to control. So for this reason, it is important to understand that sometimes DALI is just a way to transmit a signal, and the control system is something else. So the supervisor is not a DALI application controller sometimes, but is another system, another software, another platform. Okay, and so we start to see the different types of this BMS integration. I start with probably the most simple one of the most diffused, and one of the most critical also, which is the KNX to DALI integration. Of course, KNX, especially here in Europe, is one of the most diffused BMS system, if we can call BMS. There's many manufacturers, many different applications, from the small residential to the big industrial application, big buildings, and so we are aware that KNX is a reality that is very strong. The main issue is that, of course, DALI and KNX, they cannot speak directly, but we need always something that converts the KNX command to a DALI signal. This conversion is done what is usually called KNX DALI gateway. And the KNX DALI gateway is quite a complex device because it requires to have the function on the KNX side, a lot of function on the DALI side, and it requires to do the commissioning. And I say that it's a very critical integration because from our experience is where we can have many different possible compatibility issues. One of the main reasons is that this kind of devices here most of the time are managed by companies that doesn't know anything about DALI. So even if we're speaking about huge companies like I don't know, Schneider, ABB, or you name it, Meanwell is another one. These companies has a lot of experience in their field, but they don't know anything about DALI. And so when they had to do this kind of accessory here, the gateway, they usually rely on third-party manufacturer. So this configuration here is quite typical. And the product, most of the time, they work extremely in a bad way. For this reason, I always try to stress this kind of, because the complication is not on the DALI side. The complication is on the way that these devices are done. And this is something that is important to understand, because DALI is a very well standardized protocol. There's a lot of strict regulation and testing procedure to have the control gear certified. Okay. But from the master side, especially for this kind of devices, there's a DALI 2 certification of the master, but it doesn't cover, for example, the addressing procedure. So the addressing procedure, which is the sequence that the DALI master is doing for addressing, for collecting all the address, making the addressing procedure, is something that is not standardized. There's no written anywhere how you should do that. And so the gateway manufacturer, most of the time, they do different type of sequences of commands, and this is sometimes where you can find some problems. So you scan the bus and you don't find the control gear, so you find something strange. Sometimes the control gear appears and then it disappears. So and for this reason, the most important thing is that to rely on DALI 2 certified control gear, also to DALI 2 certified master. But the DALI 2 certified master doesn't mean that it's working properly sometimes. And so this is something that I always suggest to take care. Take care about having a good KNX DALI gateway, and there are not too much, there are not many on the field. Another evolution of this kind of gateways is the multi-master topologies. So as we've seen in the standalone version, also with KNX, I'm citing the Mingula example because probably it's perfect, because they have both the standalone and the KNX version of the application controller. And here the configuration can be more complete, because we can deal with DALI input devices, DALI presence sensor, and we can interface it with a KNX system. Of course, as the complication grow, the possible problem can grow. Again, especially for big installation, sometimes what I suggest is to not rely only on KNX programmers, because KNX programmers, they know everything about KNX, and again, they don't know anything how the DALI works, how you should program it, how you should set the addresses, and so on. So again, I'm not, maybe this speech is not so technical on this side, but are more suggestions that that we want to share, and based on the day-by-day work that we are doing on the field. And now we pass to a more, more common integration, but quite an interesting one, which is the Ethernet to DALI integration. So when we speak about Ethernet, we speak about many different type of protocols. It can be web-based protocols, can be different type of control system that uses Telnet, HTTP, ARPANET. So when we speak about Ethernet, the Ethernet is just a type of connector at some point, a type of protocol. But behind Ethernet, there are many different protocols. And there are many different type of BMS systems that use Ethernet at this point. Because Ethernet is a very fast communication platform. There are Ethernet cables on all new buildings, on all your rooms, and you can connect many different things on the Ethernet. You can connect the internet, you can connect the camera systems, the audio, video, and the lighting system, and BMS system also. So here we have just an example. So we have, for example, the DGM02, which is a single master DALI application controller that is meant to convert an Ethernet signal to DALI, DMX, and Modbus protocols. So it is a device that is used a lot by lighting BMS system manufacturer. People like, I don't know if you have ever heard about Control 4, Vantage in the US, hotel room management systems. So there are many different applications that are not in the lighting field, but are more in the domotic system. And this system, most of the time they use their own protocol. They use their own Dalcnet protocol, for example, or HTTP command, or Modbus TCP. So all this protocol must be integrated, and with this device, the scope of this device is exactly that. So we can enter with the Ethernet signal. There's a web interface that allows you to configure the Ethernet protocol. Of course, we can also customize the Ethernet protocol if needed. And through the web interface, we can address the DALI bus, we can set the groups. And one of the main interesting things is that with the same Ethernet command, I can control a DALI bus, a DMX universe, and also some Modbus registers. So it's like a universal gateway from the Ethernet world to the lighting world. Again, the integration also in this case is something that has some difficulties, because when we speak about Ethernet, most of the time we're speaking about softwares, so web interfaces, and so most of the time it's not something that plug and play, you connect and works. Sometimes there are some work to be done on the PLC side, if there is a PLC, to adapt the protocol to the gateway. And there are also some complications based on the type of the DALI commands that you want to send. So for example, the DGM02 added the DT8 functionality to this kind of devices. But DT8, when you send a DT8 commands, mean you are controlling RGBW or tunable white DALI products. You need to have some logic behind. And it's not so direct, it's not so easy to convert the same signal on the Ethernet side. It requires a little bit of knowledge on the protocol and knowledge how the DALI works. And another complication can be to have DMX and DALI all together, for example. So it is a common requirement most of the time, because in some application there are DMX luminaire for the facade and DALI luminaire for the interiors. But, and we will see on the DMX integration, DALI DMX have a lot of differences. And especially if we deal with DT8 commands on DALI side, it's not easy to have the parallelism between a DMX channel and a DT8 DALI signal. But again, it's a very interesting way to deal, because Ethernet now is something that is growing and growing, and if you speak about wireless system, at some point is one of the standards for the BMS in systems. DMX integration, as I said, is another important part. You know that DMX, or if you don't know, let me speak a little bit about DMX. So DMX is a historical protocol that was born for the entertainment industry. So for controlling lights for theaters, concerts, moving heads, and all that kind of devices for the entertainment. But the protocol developed so well that is nowadays is still used a lot also for architectural application. It's used a lot because for many different reasons. One of the reasons is that it's able to control a lot of channels together. So in DALI we were speaking about 64 DALI addresses maximum. In DMX with one bus, with one universe, we can control 512 channels. One of the main features of the DMX is it's very fast. Of course, if you came from the entertainment, you need to be precise and fast. And DMX is something like 10, 20, or 100 times, I don't remember, times faster than DALI. It is a more basic protocol. So there's no intelligence like DALI. So in DALI system, we have a lot of intelligence in the control gear, for example. So the scenes, the groups, the fade, all that kind of stuff. In DMX, we don't have anything. We have a master that is speaking with a slave. And we have 512 channels with intensity value. That's it. Of course, there are some feedback from the luminaires, but the concept of DMX is a master that speaks to listeners. There's no certification program, so there are the standards to follow, but there's not a strict and precise certification program. But despite this, in the DMX world, there are almost no compatibility issues. I think it's important to speak about DMX integration because even if DALI is the most diffused protocol, in a lot of architectural projects, especially, there are some hybrid requirements on the field. So I'm citing here, for example, architectural projects, so large building. So sometimes these buildings uses wall washing, luminaires, RGB effects on the facade, and most of the time the luminaires are done in DMX because of the characteristics of the luminaires. In the same building, I have the interior lighting that is managed by DALI luminaires, DALI sensor, DALI push button, like we have seen. And so the DMX and DALI integration is something that is real and is quite common. The problem, as I said, is that DMX and DALI is not only two different protocols, it has two different logic, speed, the way to control colors. And so the integration, again, is something that must be taken carefully. So, as we said, speed, there's a a big difference on the speed. And the speed differences can be quite limiting, especially when I want to control dynamic lights, like we usually do with DMX, RGB control, because a DT8 RGBW signal on DALI side can take something like 200, 300 milliseconds. So for changing one color on one luminaire. So if I want to make a dynamic effect on DALI, it's way complicated than doing that in DMX. As I said, intelligence on DALI can be called distributed. So especially for the very low speed of DALI, we cannot deal with dimming and fading with a master. And in fact, the job to dim the light in a smooth way is distributed over the control gears. While in DMX, since the protocol is very fast, we deal with fading and dimming directly from the master. Again, color control, in DMX we only have channels. We don't have colors. So an RGB luminaire in DMX are 3 channels, R, G, and B. In DT8, in DALI DT8, the RGB luminaire is one address. And so it's not easy to have a direct correspondence between what is a DALI address and what is a DMX channel. And of course, the number of devices are completely different. And so especially for big installation, having 64 addresses sometimes can be a limiting factor on having a DALI-only system. So this is, again, I can say quite a typical example of a very basic DMX to DALI integration requirements. So there's a DMX touch panel because the customer like the touch panel, or because it is already installed, or I don't know. But we have DALI luminaires, and so how I can do this conversion? There are many different ways. What I would like to show is the DGM02 conversion, because the DGM02 has some some advanced feature inside. With the DGM02, I can connect to the device with this web interface and assign and choose between addresses and group on the DALI side. And so in this way, I can, for example, align DMX channels to DALI groups or DALI addresses. And of course, I can, what is another thing that is interesting, is that I can create an offset between the DMX channels and the DALI channels. The offset is interesting and is something not so common. Why? Because on the touch panel, on the DMX side, I have 512 channels. On the DALI, I have only 64. So one of the options is to connect on the DMX side a lot of different converters that control a lot of different, up to 8 different DALI bus. But in order to do that, I need to create an offset to not have the overlapping between the DALI buses and the DMX channels. Another example of integration is the opposite direction. So I might have, like Alex and Gabriel have shown, a DALI touch panel. On the DALI touch panel, I can have, for example, some DALI luminaires connected, but I have some DMX lighting, DMX fixtures that cannot be changed to DALI. So again, this is another very typical requirement, and also here there are some possibilities. This is another example of a converter. This is the DGD DALI DMX. We have also the opposite one. And this device here is a static converter between DMX channels, between DALI addresses and DMX channels. What we have here is a pure static. When I say static, I mean that the first DMX address is the first DALI address, the second DMX channel is the second DALI address, and that's it. So this conversion here work very smoothly, except for DT8 controls. So up to now, there are no devices that are able to convert DT8 to DMX. This is because, as I said before, on the DMX side, an RGB luminaire are 3 channels. But if I have DT8 commands, the DT8 command is 1 address. And so, at least for what I know, if you have something new, let me know. But there are no devices that are able to convert a DT8 signal to a DT8 address to an RGB DMX control. Again, this is not. I want to say these kind of things because most of the time it is a typical requirement and it's something that people doesn't know. People find this kind. Okay, DMX DALI. Okay, I can connect, but DT8 is getting more common day by day, and but still there are this kind of mismatch between the DALI world and the other systems, and especially DT8 topic is something that sometimes people doesn't think about it, because DALI is DALI, okay, but DT8 commands are amazing because allows us to have more addresses on the same bus and so on, but when there are this kind of integration, it's important to understand which are the requirements. And now I move to the wireless integration. So when I speak about wireless integration, as I said before, the wireless world is something that is can be huge. Can be something, can be Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, Zigbee, LoRa, can be is a universe by itself. I'm just here to just want to cite which are the most common type of wireless requirements and systems, especially for the lighting application. The typical context, as you see on the wireless integration, are the architectural project and historical building, especially. So we came from Italy, so you know that we have a lot of old buildings, and most of the time we cannot put wire when we make new stuff, and then of course the wireless solutions are something very useful, because otherwise sometimes there were no possibility to bring wires. So this picture on the bottom right corner is the Mercato dei Fori Imperiali in Rome. So it's like an old part of the city near the Colosseum in Rome. And at that time, they were renewing the luminaire. They were adding DALI luminaires, but there were no way to bring cables. And so now, I will show you how we have done it. But something very typical is also the retail shops for wireless application. Because retail shops is a type of application that changes almost every year. So they move stuff, they move shelves, they change the displays, they change the vitrine. And so having a wireless solution allows you to take the luminaire, bring the luminaire from here to there without calling the electrician and moving. And of course, the wireless integration, most of the time is related to also the app interface. So the interface that it can be a smartphone app or a tablet app. And it is, something quite important. So I start with probably one of the most diffused DALI integration on wireless, which is of course, the Casambi combination, the combination of DALI and Casambi together. So I think that Casambi doesn't need too much presentations because up to now it's another standard, I have to say, on the lighting market. It's probably the most diffused wireless lighting control system. Casambi is a growing technology, but especially in order to scale and apply Bluetooth mesh technology on big projects, sometimes one of the main drawbacks of Casambi technology is the cost of the Bluetooth module itself. So the Bluetooth module, the prices of this Bluetooth module are, it's not fair to say that these are high, because it's not the price of the module itself, it's the price of the software, the functionality, the cloud services, and so on that you are paying. But the initial approach when Casambi entered into the market is that you have to use one Bluetooth module for every luminaire. So some euro every luminaire for every luminaire, which makes sense because it's a mesh technology. So the more Bluetooth node I have, the better it is. But sometimes it's not so good, especially for the customer that have to pay that, because and year by year we have seen that most of the installations doesn't require to control every single luminaire in an independent way. So this is an example. So you can put one Bluetooth node for every of these luminaires, but why? So most of the time you turn on all the lights together, or you have some 3 or 4 different zones, but it makes completely no sense to have one Bluetooth node for every luminaire. And so as Dalcnet, we came up, probably we were the first one in the world to develop the first Casambi DALI controller capable to control up to 64 DALI luminaires. So the CBU Master DALI, it is a device that has an AC voltage input and a DALI bus with an integrated power supply to control up to 64 luminaires. And this device here, I think that changes a little bit the game when you are dealing with Casambi and DALI projects, because thanks to the DALI wire, we can group a lot of luminaire together under the same Bluetooth node. And I can assure you that the overall cost of the project can be decreased by 10 times or even more. So the DALI and Casambi integration is something that is extremely, extremely interesting. Like we are one of the examples, but we have the CBU Master DALI EP, which is an IP-rated device also. So it's IP67 AC voltage input. We have recently launched the Slim CBU DALI, which is a smaller device with a little bit less capability in terms of number of DALI controllers, but with more or less the same functions. And one of the main interesting things about this integration is the capability to control different independent DALI groups. So I have one Bluetooth node, I have many different DALI luminaires connected, but with the same Bluetooth node I can control 8 different DALI groups. So 8 different independent areas that I can control individually. And this is very, very interesting because so it's not like only a broadcast control, but I can create different situation with just one device. And recently, this is something that Kazambi is not is not promoting too much. But recently, we have seen with Kenny downstairs before. Recently, Kazambi has introduced the possibility to make the DALI group assignment directly from the app. So in the past, when we were using these devices, the procedure was, okay, I need to have the DALI programmer, I need to program the DALI bus with the different groups, and then I can connect to the Kazambi device. Now, you don't need to have the DALI programmer anymore. You simply connect the device, and through the Kazambi app, you can identify the address, change the address, change the group, scan the bus, and making all some diagnostic information. So this kind of devices here, especially if you are dealing with Kazambi, is very interesting. Another interesting reason of the use of this combination of DALI and wireless is that if you are dealing with a wireless project, sometimes you have areas that you cannot cover with a Bluetooth, with a wireless signal, because there are walls, there are metal parts, there are building barriers. And so sometimes it's very useful to have the Bluetooth device on a reachable area, and then using the wire to reach places that are not covered by the wireless signal. The outdoor application is also another example. So a garden or something like that. Sometimes the distances are quite long. Sometimes there are problems of wireless signal, and so having the chance to use a wire sometimes is useful also in a wireless application. Then we move in another way of integrating, again, Kazambi with DALI, which is the DALI gateway functionality. We are citing our CBU DALI gateway, so our own device, but you can find the same functionality more or less with Kazambi CBU DCS devices. And this is another step forward in the full DALI and Kazambi integration. So with these devices here, with some recent feature that Kazambi has introduced, we are able to control Kazambi luminaires from a DALI bus. So this is basically the opposite direction of the previous devices. So let's imagine that I have a DALI installation. I have DALI luminaires, sensor, and everything. But I have some areas of the installation that I cannot reach with the cable. So I can add a Kazambi network, and I can connect it to the DALI bus. And the device works extremely well, because when I insert the DALI gateway into the Kazambi network, I can scan the DALI bus connected on the gateway, and basically he shows me how many DALI addresses as Kazambi luminaires that I have. So every Kazambi luminaire, so every luminaire in the Bluetooth mesh network correspond to a DALI address. So for example, RGB luminaires are DT8 addresses. So there's also the possibility to export sensor switches, and so the integration is very smooth and it works very well. Then Kazambi has made another important step forward in this kind of integration. So this the Salvador series was launched probably something like last year. Make I think a very important step forward, because the Salvador series are devices made by Kazambi that allows you to use Kazambi as a DALI control system. So you can connect, you can have a DALI bus, a complete DALI bus, and with the Salvador series, I can see the DALI devices directly on my app, and use all the very nice function and very nice user interface of the Kazambi network, the Kazambi app, to controlling DALI devices. So this allows you to treat a DALI bus as a complete 64 DALI devices, but using Casambi app as a control system, which is something that is extremely useful. Casambi is probably one of the most beautiful app on the market in terms of user experience, in terms of functionality for circadian rhythm, timers, animation. So having the chance to use a Casambi app to control a full DALI system is something quite interesting. It works very well. In this case, there are some drawbacks related to the fact that Salvador series cannot manage input devices like DALI push button and sensors, and so the application is a little bit limited on that side. But the reason is that Casambi want to push to use Casambi sensor and push buttons and so on. So from their point of view, it makes sense. So here I'm listing some possible options. Of course, there are probably hundreds of different DALI control system and combination of DALI and wired and wireless systems. So we are citing here what I think a very interesting system especially for very differentiated applications. So this is the example of the ProtoPixel system. ProtoPixel is a company based in Spain. They started with pixel-to-pixel lighting control. So they started with SPI controllers with a mapping tool on the software side. But day by day they started to integrate also the general lighting control on their system. And now the system evolved quite a lot. So this is an example of quite a very complete DALI control system, but you can find a lot of other of these examples. So can be Elvar, can be Lutron, can be many. Here we are citing what I think is most interesting and probably the newest option that we find on the market. So this is an example of how a typical ProtoPixel system works. So I have a brain. The central part of the system is what is called brain, which is a DALI 2 multi-master application controller. The brain can be connected to Ethernet network to different devices. The different devices can be, for example, some wireless solutions. So we have developed, for example, the DALI Slim. It is a Wi-Fi based controller that can control a DALI bus through the Wi-Fi and can be interfaced with the ProtoPixel brain. There are some switches, there are digital input, but of course there are Casambi integration through the DALI part. So we have seen that the CBU DALI gateway, but here there are also the CBU DCS, which is more or less the same application. So I have a DALI bus and I can control a Casambi luminaires. There are switches and sensors directly connected to DALI bus, of course, like we have seen. And as you can see, there's many different applications. What is missing probably in this slide are the fact that there are DMX integration with the DGM02, so our gateway. So this is an example of how a very complete system can deal with many different applications. So in one system we have Ethernet, we have Casambi, DALI, DMX, SPI, and many others. So it's a very nice example of how a very evolved system can reach. Of course, on the higher level, there are the software part, which can be the MyProtoPixel cloud system or external API, or can be the ProtoPixel software suite, which is there's a mobile app, there's a project tool that allows you to upload drawings and creating schemes, and also a mapping tool to make dynamics effects. Of course, for me, it's impossible to go in detail on all of this kind of system, but it's just to give quite a complete overview of what I personally think are interesting options. Another wireless DALI integration that is very interesting and works very well in my opinion is the Luma radio platform, which is something that is very simple but very effective. So Luma Radio is a company based in Sweden. They started, they was basically the inventor of the wireless DMX system. So wireless DMX is a way to transmit a wireless signal, a DMX signal at something like 1 kilometer of distance with 5 milliseconds of latency. So their wireless solution is based on a proprietary technology that even it works with 2.4 gigahertz like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, has some differences that allows to reach very, very high distances and very high speed. So the technology started from the entertainment market. They was using the wireless DMX technology for concerts like the Coachella to connect the lighting control room to the stage. Just to give you some fun example, they were using the technology for the lightsaber of the Star Wars movie. So they were integrating in the lightsaber the wireless DMX technology. So just to give an idea on how precise and how reliable must be these kind of technologies. So I'm not here to speak about wireless DMX, but about the fact that they are using the same wireless technology also to transmit DALI signal. So the Luma Radio, why DALI? I think that this phrase is perfect to describe what it is. So it's not a control system, it's just transmitting the DALI signal from one point to the other without a cable in the middle. So there's a transmitter and a receiver or multiple receiver, and that's it. So the distances can be very interesting, and we are already speaking with them for also outdoor application of this technology, because we are cooperating for integrating their technology on our devices. So just to finish, I just want to cite what it is the DALI Plus, because when we speak about wireless and DALI, of course, those maybe that has some already have seen some presentation from the DALI Association. They have heard about DALI Plus, which is a very interesting evolution of the DALI protocol, extremely interesting. So the DALI Association is working on standardizing the DALI protocol over wireless systems. So it is something that probably will be a reality in the future. At the moment, for what I know, there are no real DALI Plus application, but probably in the future we will have maybe this wireless, the integration of DALI will speak about a standard DALI protocol over Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, or other system, just to give you some possible prospect for the future. I think I finished a little bit early, but again, this is our approach on the DALI installation. Of course, you probably have other options for making the same thing, but again, for us, sometimes it's important to show a little bit, not only the product functionalities, but also the product, the client on different type of applications. If there are any questions, I'm here.